Hello and welcome to episode 112 of Nintendo Therapy, a show about the latest Nintendo news and rumors, as well as a celebration of all of the things Nintendo. Here for joining me this week for I can't talk. Joining me this week for some Nintendo Therapy is Harrison. How you doing, Harrison?
Welcome back. We'll just do one take. You're
Yeah, a
good.
little tongue-tied off the gate, but we'll get it.
Yeah, it's fine, guys. Hey, I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome back. Hope everyone's had a nice Nintendo week. Check us out everywhere. Check us out on YouTube as well. We release extra content on there, and I put up a video that's YouTube only this week. So if you're only on streaming platforms, you're not going to find it. But if you are over on YouTube, you can watch that anytime. And thank you so much. If you are, get us to 200 subscribers. Work on those small incremental goals on our way to those even bigger goals. Kevin, what has your Nintendo week been?
Well, I made it to the end of Ukulele and the Impossible Lair, and that lair is impossible. It lives up to its name. If you're trying to do it, for anyone who hasn't played the game, there's a very basic concept here where it's like a platforming collectathon game. Throughout the game, you collect these bees that will swirl around you for the end level and act as armor. And however many bees you collect is like how many damage hits you can take in the final gauntlet. And then they have a mode where you can try to take on the gauntlet flawlessly. You're going to no hits of damage. Anyone who can do that, you have my utmost respect. That's insane because I went through, I got the max number of bees, and I'm still having difficulty finishing this thing. So there are checkpoints where it saves how well you've done up to that point, and like you can try to do another run where you do a little bit better and have that checkpoint better. But I don't know. I'm having trouble with it. I know I'll be able to get through it eventually. I just need to keep repeating it over and over. But I'm just like, man, this really is impossible if somebody's doing it without the damage things. I honestly think there should have been an extra reward if you if you collected all the bees. Just give me an invincibility option. Players don't have to take it, but I collected everything. Let me just finish this game.
There's no alternate ending.
There's an alternate ending if you do the thing that I said that's impossible. So I'm going to watch it on YouTube. There's an alternate ending if you make it through the whole thing without taking a single hit of damage and not turning the bees on, which I think it's just an alternate screen. I don't think it's like a whole ending. It's probably just like a photo they give you or something.
Interesting. I
And there's
Yeah,
trophies obviously and stuff like that.
yeah. Oh, that's good. So you're gonna play the next one now.
That's the first one I played. I'm leaning towards buying the remake they're doing of the first one, Yuka Replay or whatever. I don't think I'm going to be a day one on that one because, like I said, I already own the original release and I've completed it. But definitely, if it's on sale, I've watched videos on how much of an improvement the remake is, and believe it or not, even though it's just one generation later, this looks way better.
The possible layer is the second one. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't have to play them in order, I guess, if I don't want to.
No,
But yeah,
they're
it's
literally nothing connecting them. I've even seen some people online argue, um, when you're playing a game, you wind up in comment sections about that game. And I've seen people, I didn't participate, but they were arguing that Impossible Lair isn't a sequel, it's a spin-off. And it's like it does whatever. There's only two games in this whole series at this point.
okay. Didn't know that. I thought that was the first one, but it's on my list. It's something that I'm gonna play for $3, and backwards compatibility told me, okay, I got some time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So what's been on your mind this week?
Yeah. When you had endings, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I realized this week that one of my favorite indie games on Switch inspired the TV show Severance, which is I didn't know that because everyone keeps
I didn't know that.
everyone keeps talking about Severance and
What was it? What game?
Stanley Parable. And
Oh,
I've
okay.
talked about that game a few times on here, mostly because I think Stanley Parable and the developer of that game has created some of the just most important uh, art in video games in just modern history. It's pretty amazing. I'm I think on my channel I'm just gonna do a whole episode on it eventually because it's something that I played as like a very, very goofy, silly looking kind of game, but it's something that there were so many parts to it where like, like you ever play something and then when it's over, you just have to like sit there and be like, what was that? Like it just like there's so many because I think the developer does a really good job playing with ideas of like projection, which is
Mhm.
very interesting because if you explore ideas of artistic projection, once you try to analyze it, you start to realize you're doing exactly what you're not supposed to be doing in a sense. Um, so I've never seen Severance. I guess I have to watch it or whatever because um, I need to see the connections between what those things are. Highly recommend anyone check it out. It's on Steam. It's on Switch. It's actually on mobile now, which was a big surprise. But hey, more accessibility is is awesome. And eventually we'll do our indies on here, but I digress. There was one more. It's not gonna be a whole, segment, so I'll just do it right now, because I was gonna do, like, a "Is this game actually good?" segment. I've been doing, like, a lot
Okay.
of, like, B-roll and, like, a lot of I've been watching a lot of gameplay this past couple of weeks, so here's the one I'll give you. Is Nintendo Land good? Was it actually good, Nintendo Land?
There were definitely uh it's a hard question because it's slices of mini games and I'll admit there's definitely ones in there that are not good. I think more of them are good than aren't, but it's a slight majority. How many games are in that? We'll say I think there's like 7 games in it, so I'd say there's like 4 good and 3 bad or something like that. It's very hit or miss, so I would give Nintendo Land I'd still give it a passing grade, but it would probably be a C or a C minus. The games that are good are really good. It's one of those games though where I'll say this, single player is not good. Like Nintendo Land, you need a second player and it's almost like Wii Sports in that it's mostly but Wii Sports you can play by yourself better than Nintendo Land. That is like purely a party game, I would say.
Yeah,
You need other people.
yeah. Which can cause issues if it is a pack-in game because
Mhm.
like we Sports, they made a really good decision with doing, we're gonna do 5 sports. We're gonna do 5 sports that are all really, really good that yeah, you can play single player or multiplayer. Yeah,
Let me look up how
uh,
many events it had. We'll score them. Oh, there's more than I remember. So there's Animal Crossing, Sweet Day, Balloon Trip Breeze, Donkey Kong, Zelda, Luigi's Ghost Mansion. I don't know why it's not just Luigi's Mansion. Mario Chase, Metroid. The Metroid one I played a lot. That one was good, and the Luigi's Mansion one was really cool. Pikmin. Yeah, these are more miss than hit. Now that I'm looking at the fact that there's 12 games in here, out of the 12 games, I think like 4 or 5 of them are solid. So less than half.
yeah, it's still tough if it's a pack-in game because, yeah, you're coming off the Wii, and the last pack-in game showed off so much of what that system does. So does Nintendo Land show off what the Wii U does? And
Yeah, like,
we're
would
always
we
going to,
remember Wii Sports so fondly if they had, 8 other sports on there that were terrible, you know?
yeah, yeah, it would have still been more of a success than Nintendo Land, but made that right choice because so many things that follow it are just bloat, especially now. Like
Mhm.
I think the further and further we go, and then we have like the ultimate editions of things, to where we've talked on here about what do they do next. If you have the ultimate edition of Smash, or you have a whole generation where you don't do a Mario Kart game, the most successful generation, and you don't do a Mario Kart game. So yeah, I was just watching the Nintendo Land, like when the shooting one, there's a shooting one. And I'm like, that looks really nice. Like
Yeah,
graphically,
there's a Zelda. Zelda's more action actually in that. Um, it was good. Like I just don't know if it's like worth revisiting, I guess is what I would say. And as far as the pack-in thing goes, I think they had to do it as a pack-in because I don't think people would have bought that by itself. But I feel like, and I'm not the first one to say this about the Wii U, they needed something else available at launch to play with Nintendo Land. And I think if we had something like a new 3D Mario at the time or something, if they had launched with anything other than what they did, people would have played Nintendo Land in conjunction with other thing, and it would have been bigger than it was. They didn't have a Nintendo Land wasn't the system seller that Wii Sports was, and that was the problem. It had to be a pack-in game, but it wasn't a system seller, so you needed this as the pack-in, and you also needed a system seller, which they didn't have.
it's pretty crazy. They had the momentum of Animal Crossing and Zelda, and they still couldn't really figure that game out because
Mm.
I don't know if we really see that much in the future. I mean, we are getting more games with different kinds of characters, but outside of like again like Smash, Mario Kart, I don't know how often we would see actual new kind of games that have Zelda, that have Animal Crossing. So yeah, there's definitely potential, definitely potential,
Mhm.
but and it's not the reason why the Wii U failed or had a bad launch.
I would
So,
say despite what people online would like to argue, there's no one reason the Wii U failed. There's a lot of stuff. It's almost that they overuse this term, but it was a perfect storm of many things going against it.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. But Nintendo Land's not on the top. I would no, it can't be like it was doomed before that, and the Switch had what 1, 2 Switch at launch, and they were fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they were completely fine. So there was that. It looked nice. I was watching the gameplay of Nintendo Land, and I'm like, it graphically it looks nice. So I I
There was
was I was
I'm
inspired.
gonna drop a bonus episode around the beginning of next month about the Wii U because it's finally time for it to sail off into the sunset now that it's 2 systems old. We're finally gonna get our big info drop on the Switch 2 soon, and I think it's time to finally I already wrote the whole script. I'm gonna record a bonus episode on all my Wii U thoughts, and yeah, it's just such a shame. It's missed there's so much to love about the Wii U. It's unfortunate what happened.
I don't know if it has any other legacy beyond that
Oh,
because
especially since everything worth
yeah.
playing for it, came out on the Switch eventually, or multiple consoles like, Lego City Undercover was originally a Wii U exclusive, and then it wound up on every system eventually.
And even things like 3DS, I think, have been either just as relevant over the past few years, or it has maybe even ramped up in certain places because nothing has
Mhm,
replaced 3DS yet. And it sure seems
mhm.
like people, at least around where I live, pick them up all the time. If you want to buy one, people are always interested in like having it to like just dump games on, which I know is not the intention.
Yeah.
But it's not supported. Oh, there's no virtual console, there's no eShop, there's none of that anymore. So there hasn't been any kind of system that has replaced the 3DS, and then it's just kind of I think came back around. But we'll see. that that might be part of our episode today. So yeah, I have a fun activity for us, but how about we do some news items and then we'll do that
Okay,
last.
yeah, I've got a handful of stuff that I wanted to bring up on the show this week. It was actually kind of a good news week for Nintendo. So the first item of business here, the Switch 2 is confirmed to have NFC compatibility, which for those of you who don't know, the NFC technology so far has been used for Amiibo, and I think it's a reasonable assumption that that's what the Switch 2 will be using NFC technology for. So, Amiibo almost all but confirmed to be back, which is great for people like me who collect them. I was really, really nervous that they were gonna start giving up on these. And I don't know, I just love them. I need to get a case for them where I can display them, maybe back here for the podcast, be nice. But yeah, I love my Amiibo
So do they make amiibos so that they are not how would you say it? Forwards compatible?
because there were
Yeah.
Amiibo that released for Wii U games that they retroactively, I guess what you're saying is like program them like there's Amiibo that work with like Breath of the Wild was also a Wii U game, but I don't know. The answer is yes. They've made Amiibo for Wii U games that worked on Switch games.
I meant the other way. Like, could
That
I
I don't know.
like if I make an amiibo
Hmm.
during the next generation, is it going to work
I'm
on my current gen Switch?
I'm gonna say there's no reason it wouldn't work because from what I understand of how it works, most games still let you use Amiibo that aren't designed for that game. So it would just register if it was a newer one playing on an older game, it would just register as, "Hey, this is an Amiibo, but it's not designed for this particular game, so I'll give you the generic payout of whatever that category is." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because the tech isn't changing, I'm assuming, from generation to
Yeah. So
generation,
I
which is great.
I think it would be like using a Mario Amiibo on a Zelda game. Something like that, which I do all the time. I use all my Amiibo. Whenever I'm playing Breath of the Wild, that was my favorite way to use them. I think Breath of the Wild had some of the best Amiibo integration because they're in this tough spot with Amiibo where they can't really give you anything too good, or people are going to argue, hey, I paid full price for this game. Why aren't I getting the full game? Everything they do has to kind of fit into like DLC territory. So all they can really give you is like alternate skins or maybe some item drops. That was the best part about them for Breath of the Wild is the item drops. Now, a lot of stuff would drop fish, which made upgrading the Zora armor much easier than having to go out. I hate fishing in Breath of the Wild. I don't know why there's not a fishing pole in that game, but it was a lot easier to just have all the fish in my inventory because I had been using my Amiibo the whole time. What else? And the alternate costumes are good too. But again, all that stuff is in DLC category. It's basically like a random loot crate that dropped.
I'm sure we've talked about it on here, but we got
Mm.
bombs, that's why. You got bomb just
Yeah,
put a bomb in the water, come on.
but I'm saying they could have. What they could have done is have like different levels of fish. They could have had the fish up at the surface that the bombs get, and maybe have some deeper down that the bombs don't get, and you use a fishing pole for those,
Don't get me
and have
wrong.
those.
Yeah, I wish the same thing. I do. I
Yeah,
do.
you could put the weapon durability on the fishing pole too, so you have to keep replacing it. I don't know. It's interesting to me that the first Zelda game where the fish are actually useful, you don't have a fishing mini game. And there's so many Zelda games with fishing mini games where you're just like all the fish are there for is you get rupees for catching them or maybe a heart piece. And it's like, well, now they're used to upgrade armor and there's like they're used for specific side quests and different things and there's no fishing. It's weird.
It yeah, and it would fit the idea that every good game has a fishing mini game in it.
Mhm. Yep.
But God, yeah. Oh, I love Breath of the Wild. I just like the wind bombs are just some of my favorite things in that game. I just love that like, they just give you free bombs in the beginning. You just get the free bomb and like
Yeah.
and like it doesn't cause any damage, but with the physics of it, there's so much you can do. Wind bombing is one of my favorite things to do in just any game. Um, God, I love that game. Okay, we got to move on. Um,
Yep, other
yeah,
story here, Tony Hawk 4 career mode is being replaced with time-based challenges. So we talked before about how in July 11th, I think, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 remake is coming out, and I guess the version of 4 we're getting is not a one-to-one remake. It's very disappointing for me because the main draw was that 3 is my favorite Tony Hawk, and then 4 I've never played, so I was looking forward to playing 4 the way 4 is supposed to be played. Like, I've heard so much talk about this, like, free roaming nature of it, and now I won't get to sample that.
yeah, I don't know what to say about this. I mean, it's just unfortunate. And I was up last night and I was thinking about like what's the equivalent of it's not the most popular game. It's just like one of my favorite games. But you take
Mhm.
one of my favorite games and you take out the most important and the best game mode. Like that would be like I don't know, like playing like, I tried writing it down, but, like, it's like playing, like, Link to the Past, like, playing a remake of Link to the Past, but we get rid of exploration and we get rid of dungeons. It
Yeah,
was like
going back to Breath of the Wild that we were just talking about, it's like
yeah,
they did a remake of Breath of the Wild, but it's not open world anymore. You have to follow a specific path like a game like Final Fantasy X does,
yeah.
if anybody's played both of those.
There's the whole big point is what you said, and the whole selling point of Pro Skater 4 is exactly that, and it was I mean, I wanna say groundbreaking because, like, the Pro Skater series was huge, and if you grew up around it, you knew it, like, my parents knew it, you know? Um, but the idea is that 4 connected the Pro Skater series to Underground, and
Mhm.
once Activision or whoever starts approaching Tony Hawk's Underground, which they're gonna do, Underground and 2 were just huge
Yeah.
games. What
I'm
what do you do in
wondering if
that
this news
situation?
means that those will be remade individually and they won't be paired up anymore. Like it'll just be a Tony Hawk Underground remake because maybe it's too much for them.
It's just unfortunate, like, it's almost me wanting to say, like, if you wanna play it, just, like, try to find a way to play the original, I guess, because I
Well, I
don't
still have my PS2 or was that a 2 game? Yeah, that was a PS2 game. I have a PS3 too, so either way, I have whatever it originally released on. I could try to find an old copy.
I'm just amazed by it. I can't believe they went this route. I can't imagine why they would do this. It's not like it's like something that's extremely difficult. I think this is them thinking that this is what consumers want, and I can't figure out what led to them doing this. Again, like imagine if they took your favorite video game and they took out the most important game mode and the best game mode. I don't get it. It's really upset by it.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
wondering if they'll end up walking this decision back or if we're just misunderstanding what they're saying because it's a really bizarre choice to make.
because they're gonna have to do Tony Hawk's Underground at some point. They could do them as separate games. I mean,
Mhm.
like they are Underground 2 is in I think probably the best Tony Hawk game, all of them. I haven't played the later ones, but I'm gonna assume. I think Underground 2 in quality is better than anything that comes before that. So you could release them separately as like 30 or perhaps even $40 games if you're actually going to like remasters them. But it's gonna be an open world game. It has to be. There's a
Mhm.
story mode in it. You cannot do
Yeah.
Underground without the story mode. So why not do Pro Skater 4? Frustrating. I'm not I'm not, like, exaggerating for the podcast. I'm not, like, being dramatic for the podcast. I'm, like I'm seriously upset by it because I wanted to buy this game.
Yeah. Yep, it's
Because
disappointing. There's nothing else to say about it. It's just very disappointing, and I hope something about this news changes, even if it doesn't
Yeah,
completely change to being a one-to-one remake.
yeah, and maybe it's a misunderstanding, and maybe they change it, and Pro Skater 3 is also awesome. I do love Pro Skater 3. It might be the best Pro Skater, I don't know, like, I don't I never thought 4 was the best, but it's always been my favorite, but the best out of the Pro
Well,
Skaters
each one
is
up until 4 introduced something new, and I feel like the series started to struggle after that. Like, the first one was the first one, the second one introduced manuals, the third one introduced I forget, what it's called, but it's, the thing you can do in the vert ramps to link your vert tricks together, um, and then the fourth one introduced the open world aspect. So each one, 1 through 4, introduced something that majorly affected the gameplay.
and then Underground introduced walking, which is which
Various,
which
that was
which
the word.
is which is, yeah. Yeah, so and in Underground, that was huge when you
Mhm.
could finally get off your board. And again, like, all 6 of those games are incredible, and find a series that does that. Find a series where the first 6 games are all, like, must-play games for some reason that introduce new mechanics, in each of them. So if you go back to a certain one, you're learning that different mechanic. That's too bad.
We will be keeping an eye on this
Yeah.
story as it develops. So, Chrono Trigger, the only other thing I wanted to talk about this week, they're celebrating, or they already celebrated their 30th anniversary, and they said they have various projects planned. So, I hope we get the original game made available on modern consoles. I don't think it's coming to Switch Online, but just put it on put it on the eShop, put it on, the PlayStation Store, Xbox, whatever. uh, that's all I need. All I want is the original game. I don't even necessarily want it to be the DS or the PlayStation remake that added those CGI cutscenes, because I honestly feel like those CGI cutscenes kind of took away from the game, but I'll take it. I'll take it if they put that out there. The only other project I would care about is if they were doing, like Dragon Quest has been doing, an HD 2D remake of the game. I don't need to see this thing done Final Fantasy VII remake style, and I don't think they would. I don't think it's as popular as Final Fantasy VII, so I don't think they would put that amount of resources into it. And also, like, I don't really care about any connected universe games to it. We already had like Radical Dreamers and Chrono Cross Collection, and I don't know. I just don't like these kind of announcements. Anytime I see a company say like, "Oh, we have so many projects planned around insert IP that's been dead since the 90s here." How about you start with one project and concentrate on making that one project good instead of how that one project can splinter into 6 others, you know? I don't know. I'm getting reminders of the DC cinematic universe versus the Marvel cinematic universe, and how, like, every time someone tries this type of thing, they try to jump in already with a whole universe of projects planned, versus how the MCU developed, which they made 5 or 6, you could even argue, whole movies before they did anything other than, like, mention each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, they weren't, like, integrating right away, so I don't know. I got a lot of thoughts, and I'm just so sick of hearing "Hey, remember this thing you haven't seen in 30 years? Well, we have 7 things planned to release about it." And I'm like, Can you just do one
Yep,
and see if people even still care?"
yep, totally agree. Not a fan of this series, so I can't gauge how much of it is just the 30th anniversary, but since we're on this podcast, I'll have fun with it. Sure seems like they're gauging things. It sure seems like
Mhm.
they're trying to see how much interest is in this game. And
I would say it all went back to the Chrono Cross HD re-release. Even that was them dipping their toes in, like, do people still care? Because 'Cause they're very loosely related. You need to play a visual novel to really appreciate how it all comes together. Um, but yeah, I think the interest gauging kinda started there.
I saw that It was like the one of the top games on the iOS store. I think it was
Mhm,
90% off or something for the anniversary, but still, it
mm.
was one of the top games, on discount on the iOS App Store. So, again, when it comes to games like this, I'm always amazed by how much time, the amount of people have for games like this, because certainly is, um, I will say oversaturated genre, and it's a genre that requires a lot of people's time, yet it never seems like there's enough JRPGs.
The beauty of Chrono Trigger, and I think why it's lasted so long, is the time travel element of the story. You eventually, very quickly, I'd say, only like halfway into the game, get to a point where it's a lot of free roaming games where like you could go to the end right now. And like everything else is optional. So it's kind of up to you how much of the game you experience. And I think anytime it was like one of the first games to really have a lot of freedom in that sense, and I think that led to a lot of its popularity.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's approaching a game like this on Super Nintendo, that was, I'm sure, the right approach. I think about that a lot when I think about games like Chrono Trigger, is that I have to put myself in the mind that there wasn't like that much before it in comparison to like what we have now, where JRPGs feels like there's just been a certain formula that JRPGs fit into. You know, usually I've only played a couple of them. So, yeah, this is not the last time we talk about Chrono Trigger in the near future on this show. I think there's going to be something else of this franchise. Yeah. I like
Mhm.
the artwork a lot in this game.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see what the other projects entail, but I'm just like I'm probably done when they give me the original game. Just give me that. I'm good.
Before
And
I
that
go,
was everything. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, before I go, is there anything you want to talk about with Switch 2 game prices?
Yeah, that was just a quick one. I didn't even know if it was worth mentioning, but comicbook.com reports that Nintendo Switch 2 is possibly increasing the price of games. The classic, like, when will these games be $70? And call me naive for trusting Nintendo, but I think they made it a point to go out of their way to say that Tears of the Kingdom was an exception and they had no plans of making $70 a standard price for games at any point. And I know it wouldn't be the first time they said something and did something else, but to me, if the Switch 2 really is a half step behind generation wise, possibly even more, there would be no need for $70 games. I think that's part of the appeal of Nintendo staying a little bit behind. I think we'll see PlayStation and Xbox hit that as a standard way before we see Nintendo do it, but we'll see.
And I'm gonna say we will see some $70 games, which is why
Sure.
Tears of the Kingdom was $70.
Sure, but this
Which
article is mentioning it though it's gonna be the standard price, and I don't
okay.
think, because I mean, we don't even really have a standard price right now. There's a lot of games that are even just 49.99 and 59.99. Like, we don't even have a standard between those 2 prices, so we'll
Yeah.
see.
I'll digress a bit because this is another bigger topic episode I'm working on. Not even for this channel actually, because it's GTA related, I guess. um, but it's amazing how many people, especially in media, are rooting for video games to crash at this point. AAA games, that is,
Mhm.
because of how out of control the pricing is. So, the only thing I'll add on to that is that I think within this generation or next generation, it's getting kind of fuzzy where the generations are going to lie. I do think we might see a time where we see a standard go up and then dip back down because consumers start saying there's too many other good cheap games out there, AAA games, too many of them. take steps that they shouldn't take, or don't take enough steps that they should be taking. Um, I think we see that in this generation. I just don't know. Again, like I'm not even gonna be really sure where the generations lie anymore. With
Mhm.
the Switch 2 being in the middle of, yeah, Anyways, you did all the news items I wanted to do. So, uh, I present you a game of Nintendo Therapy. Would you rather? And I'll play with you because Sean's not here today. I have six of them. Number one, Kevin, would you rather Nintendo bring back dual screens like the DS or 3DS, or focus on single screen hybrid consoles for the next generation?
Honestly, I think I'd rather dual screens. I'm a big fan of it. I know it's a controversial topic where people say a lot of times they just end up sticking the map down there. Honestly, when they do just stick the map down there, I'm good with that. Whenever I play a dual screen game, it just reminds me how often I'm pausing my game to do something as simple as equip an item or something like that when I can just on the DS, like yeah, Link Between Worlds, for example. It's so easy to just slide the item choo-choo into the slot and keep going. The Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask remake, same deal. So I love dual screens, and even if it's just something as simple as putting the item menu on the bottom screen, I think it makes a world of difference.
I'm with you. I'll just say no reason. If you focus on dual screens, you can't just focus on one screen if you have two screens. So,
Mhm,
so there's that. I see functionality in the next system of a dual screen being much more than something that you just game on. I think there is certainly a social aspect to it, or something I haven't thought of yet. Yeah,
mhm.
but I could see dual screens being used in the Miiverse somehow, being used with oh, I saw like IGN, or not IGN, some publisher on Blue Sky said Nintendo filed a patent for improved voice chat. And I was like, I wrote a comment and I deleted it saying improved voice chat,
Yeah.
improved from what necessarily? Improved from the mobile app? But you ever type something out and then you're like, nah, nah, forget it.
All the time.
Would you rather play a perfect remaster of every Super Nintendo game, or have every GameCube game available on the Switch too?
A perfect remaster of every Super Nintendo game because the GameCube I'm not interested in every GameCube game. I'm honestly only interested in a handful of GameCube games. So, might be a hot take on a Nintendo podcast. I know it's a very beloved system. The games that hit hard, but I'd say there's more miss than hit there. So as far as playing the entire catalog, that's not something I need. I need 7 games, maybe less.
Don't think it's controversial.
Mm.
It's Nintendo or Nintendo. I'm almost asking you, like, which system would you rather have those games for? Perfect remaster
Super
of every.
Nintendo is might be my favorite system of all time. I fanboy out on all of them, but I'll tell you right now, it's of the when I organize my stuff by playtime on the Switch, the Super Nintendo Switch Online service is in my top 5 most opened apps. So, yeah.
I'd go GameCube, but I'm a bit younger, perhaps. And yeah, I don't know why I chose these two. I don't know if it's because I see colors, or I do see some kind of similarity between these
Bring
two.
back the purple Nintendo, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Would you rather be stuck in the Mushroom Kingdom for a year, or be stuck in Hyrule for a year?
The Mushroom Kingdom seems way more survivable. I'm going with Mushroom Kingdom. The Hyrule Kingdom's dirty, seems cold, like, it's unfriendly. It doesn't seem like a good place to live. Mushroom Kingdom at least seems like the especially in the Mario and Luigi series, there's towns isolated away from whatever Bowser's up to.
Mushroom Kingdom always seems like a good option. I was going through and thinking about because if you chose Hyrule, you're not choosing the post-apocalyptic Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. But Echoes of Wisdom wouldn't be as bad, but it would still be pretty bad. And
I
it's
could
like,
live in Mary Moore from Super Mario RPG. That was in the Mushroom Kingdom.
okay, yeah, man, that one's too easy. That was my silly one. Would you rather have a brand new 2D Mario in the style of Super Mario World or a new 3D Mario like Odyssey?
3D Mario, like Odyssey, all the time. uh, I'm not that big on 2D Mario. I like it. I've played them all, but I think I've played them all anyway. But I always prefer 3D. And Odyssey is like possibly my favorite Mario game, period. So yeah, keep the 3D Mario going.
Yeah. 2D's not going anywhere though, is it? No.
No, I don't think so. I think they pull it out as a novelty every once in a while. That's basically what they did with Wonder, is they were like, "Hey, we need something on the release schedule. Let's pull this out and put it at the end of a slow year." So I think that's what they do. They kind of probably always have one that they're tinkering around with, and they drop it when they need the attention.
I think that worked out pretty good. I think the legacy of that game is gonna be interesting. I think it's gonna be one of those, "Oh, yeah, like Mario Wonder, that was a good game," "That was a good game when it came out."
I have a lot of thoughts on how I actually think Impossible Lair did certain things, not everything. But I think Impossible Ukulele and the Impossible Lair did a lot of things better than Wonder did. It's got a lot of similar ideas. Tonics are very similar to the badges, and I feel like the tonic system works better because you do multiple ones and you can combine them and stuff. There's just a lot of similarities there. They're both side scrolling. It's got a better overworld. The overworld for Ukulele plays more like um Link's Awakening remake or Echoes of Wisdom. It really has like there's puzzles on the overworld and stuff. So it feels like you get a side-scrolling game and a top-down Zelda game in one, whereas the overworld in Wonder was very basic. There's just a lot of stuff. I'm not saying it's necessarily a better game, but I think it did certain things better.
I'm going with Odyssey also. Yeah, I'm not a 2D Mario guy, despite my favorite Nintendo game being a 2D Mario game. Would you rather bring back F-Zero or Kid Icarus?
I would rather bring back Kid Icarus because I've never played Uprising. It looks really good. I've played F-Zero 99 and lots of F-Zero games, and I just feel like they've prove me wrong, Nintendo, but I feel like they've gone as far as the concept can go, especially with some of those later F-Zero games having like, a million drivers to choose from, and I really don't connect with any of them. So yeah, I liked the first F-Zero a lot, and it's diminishing returns from there on out with that series, but Kid Icarus, I feel like, is nothing but possibilities.
Yes, and I'm gonna agree with you and just say, yeah, I'm not surprised that we don't have an F-Zero game. I am shocked we don't have a Kid Icarus game on this
Mhm.
generation.
It's also just a really cool
Absolutely shocked.
character model that they redesigned for Smash Brothers. Don't waste that.
I absolutely shocked we did not at least get an Uprising remaster on this series. Stands out as something that is very unique character. You could do many different genres as we have already seen as an example with Uprising. And mythology is hot right now. It's been hot for like the last at least 5 years or so. So where is it,
Mhm.
Nintendo? Like Hades and all these other God of War, all these other games are extremely popular. So, Kid Icarus. Last one. Would you rather play Ocarina of Time for the first time or Breath of the Wild for the first time?
Huh. Um, I'm gonna say I think I had my mind blown more by Ocarina of Time for the first time, even though I do really like Breath of the Wild, which I would rather play Breath of the Wild right now than play Ocarina of Time. But as far as experiencing it for the first time, I'd rather relive that experience of Ocarina of Time. One of
It
the greatest gaming memories like ever.
Yeah, I had difficulty with it because, of course, I'd go Breath of the Wild, but, like, I've always said that nostalgia is something where, like, nostalgia should be nostalgia. It should be like you shouldn't live in it because then it's not
Mhm.
nostalgia, but enjoy it and then let it go.
Well, the
And
thing I always point out about Ocarina of Time and playing it for the first time is it's almost something you can't even imagine anymore because we've come so far. And I just have this memory that I'll never forget of how mind-blowing it was that there's a puzzle in Ocarina of Time where you have to shoot an arrow through a flaming torch into an ice switch to melt it. And that level of outside the box, this isn't just pushing a button or hitting a switch thinking, um, blew my mind at the time and really made me feel like right now, from here on forward, the developers can do anything they want in a video game. They can make anything happen. Just from that one puzzle, it was just like insane. And I feel like that puzzle sounds so simple to describe to anyone today. They can't even imagine a time where that would be revolutionary.
the only thing I would add on is just that if I said Ocarina of Time, I would go back for like a day, a weekend,
Mhm.
perhaps,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't want to I wouldn't wanna go back and, like, live in that time, but I certainly would love to have that experience again. Breath of the Wild, that's probably why it was so successful is because, um, that is the closest thing to Ocarina of Time that I experienced, since playing it, because Breath of the Wild had moments where I felt like if this game mechanic is possible, then so many other things in games must be possible as well. And it is
Mhm.
like what you said or like what we've talked about on here when you're looking up at the sun, at the pillars, and you shoot an arrow and a shrine pops up and you feel like it's this magical thing because it's a game mechanic that could happen at any point because of the day cycle within the game.
Mhm.
And it's like that feeling you got in Ocarina of Time where you're like, "This might not work, and it shouldn't work," and then it does work. So,
It just makes you feel like the
it's
developers thought of everything when stuff like that works. You're like, "Oh, wow, they really knew that I would try to do this," you know?
yeah, yeah. And just the ultimate form of showing and not telling. Nintendo at its core, at its best, is art. And both these games are art, so, this has to be the most difficult question I ask you today. I think Ocarina of Time is the right answer because of the nostalgia. But again, if I'm going back, I want one good weekend of just, like, being at home and playing outside and eating pizza and whatever else I'm doing, so there's that. Alright, I took up, um, enough time that I need to. You know what? I don't have I don't have Super Soccer queued up. I'll do that in post. Let's move on to our spotlight game, and yeah, I don't have that much to say, so I'm happy that I took up our time today.
Yeah, so we did something unusual this week. Our spotlight is Super Soccer for the Super Nintendo, which came out December 1991 in Japan and May of 1992 in North America. And then also Super Tennis, which came out in August of 91 in Japan, November of 91 in North America. So that one actually came out first here, first in both actually. So yeah, we did something unusual this week where we did not randomly select this game. We selected Super Soccer on purpose because it is going to be leaving the Switch Online service. It's the first game to do so, even though some people in the comment section of our TikToks from last week wanted to disagree. It is. They brought up games like Mario 35, which, yeah, technically that was removed from Switch Online. but that wasn't like a game. We're talking about games from the classic library of games. Mario 35 was always, it wasn't removed from the service. It was up for as long as they told us it was going to be. It was part of the anniversary celebration. You know what I
It
mean?
yeah, and I see people saving that post, so if you're saving it to support Nintendo Therapy, that's great. If you're saving it as keeping receipts, just even don't bother. Yeah, we'll probably block you.
But yeah, and also I don't know, Super Mario 35 and Tetris 99 and F-Zero 99, which will eventually be off the service. I just argue those aren't even like really full games. They're more of a bonus feature.
Not what we're
So
talking about.
exactly. We're
Yeah.
talking about this is the first game from the library of classic games from the channels you get for subscribing to Switch Online to be removed. You can be pedantic if you want to, but in the 7 years they've been uploading games to this service, this is the first time they've done something like this any way you slice it. So, yeah, Super Soccer.
Super
I
sorry.
thought it was very interesting that this game was played from sort of a it's not first person, it's like an over the shoulder almost point of view. You're kind of down in the field with the players. I think it worked much better for Super Tennis, but it was an interesting way to go about it, especially on a Super Nintendo.
Yeah, Super Soccer is nice, and I have to eliminate myself a little bit for this being like soccer and tennis, and I guess I do like tennis games, I like Mario Tennis. That's pretty much it. But soccer is just like this might like you could tell me this is the best soccer game on Super Nintendo, and I'd have to go, okay. I wouldn't know what to compare it to the same as I feel with Super Tennis. Um, I wanna do it separately, but I certainly like tennis a lot more than Super Soccer, but I think Super Soccer is, uh a solid game, and I think they made interesting choices with it, whether it was graphically or gameplay style. For example, I found, like, the graphics to be a little bit more I wrote down calm. It's, like, not
Mhm.
as bright or vibrant as, like a Yoshi's Island or something, but I like the graphical style of it, and the gameplay I thought was, like, fine because, like, the controls are pretty tight, you can slide, but overall, it's probably better to just, like, be physical and just tackle your opponent instead of trying to slide the ball the way it might just be better to just try and hit him because I don't know if you can really get that much trouble for doing that in that game.
Hmm.
So, that was pretty much it. The only thing else I wrote down for this is that, since they had tackling and everything in this game, why not add some combat? Because I can always think of, like, extra game modes to put onto a game. I always say, like, "Oh, you could put, like a story mode, and it would be welcoming on games like this. You put a career mode or a franchise mode." But I was thinking about how in future generations, especially in, like, the early 2000s, we had lots of sports games, that were non-combat that added combat. That was just kind of a theme, like, NHL Hits, NFL Blitz, Outlaw Golf, things like that.
The Mutant League games were always ones I was a big fan of.
Yeah. I couldn't think of any early ones, either NES or Super Nintendo, but I wrote down there's Lee Trevino's Fighting Golf on arcade and NES, which is a very, very strange piece of Nintendo trivia because there's no fighting in the game. Which, like if you could you imagine going to Blockbuster and being like, "Fighting golf, it's pretty that sounds cool," and getting home and just finding out it's just a golf game. It's just like you're fighting just by playing golf. That's it. So, uh, yeah,
Yeah, I didn't have
what
much to
else?
say. It's a very basic soccer game. It's really, really interesting. The perspective was the most interesting part of the game. But other than that, I don't think it worked very well. And I think I'd rather see soccer from the top down perspective we normally see it in this generation. So I applaud them for trying. This is how the medium moves forward. This is how we get better games in the future, was when people experiment with stuff like this. But I just don't think it worked here. I ranked this one pretty low at 102, which puts it below even the NES soccer. Uh, this 102 puts this down. Where's my list? 102 ranks this game below Castlevania Legends on Game Boy and above Excitebike on NES versus Excitebike. Sorry.
For me, it's at 83. I think it's a solid game. I think it's ambitious, even if the ambition is wrong. So I think 83 it's still, even though it's low, I think it's still in a range where I wouldn't call it a bad game. I just would say that ambition is wrong. It's not for me. It's a soccer game. Blah. I would struggle on who to recommend it to, but let's do that together at the end because I want to stick on the idea of camera or perspective because Super Tennis, I think a huge positive of that is perspective, and I did a little research, and I'm not sure if Nintendo took any ideas for Mario Tennis from Super Tennis, but that
It's very
3/4
possible.
that not overhead, but like the 3/4 overhead
Mhm.
perspective from when you're looking um above but behind your player is very nice. So, in one Super Soccer, you have camera that is not so good. Super Tennis, I think there is a lot of good things about this game. And in my research, wrote down that SNES Drunk, who I trust, they're the experts. They say that this is the best Super Nintendo tennis game. It feels solid, so I believe them. Apparently, there's a lot of tennis games on Super Nintendo, and I don't think I've played any of them.
Well, this was reviewed very well at the time when it came out. I saw a clip here where Mean Machines magazine declared it to be the best tennis game available as of October 1991, which is when that issue came out. But like, if you look at the reception section on its Wikipedia, it's got like all 9 out of 10s, 96%, 90 out of 100, 4 out of 5 from Nintendo Power. It's got really good scores from back when it was a new release. Today, like you said, I think I would prefer to play a Mario's Tennis. I don't know why I would ever choose to play this, but if you're somebody who would like a non-silly tennis game, this is a good option.
Exactly. Yeah, and the use of courts, like, right, there was, what, 3 different courts on this, and they each have a different effect, which is also something that we see Mario Tennis on N64. I think both these games have a good amount of ambition to it. It's just that one does it, I think, a lot better than the other one. So, jumping ahead, this is, 71 for
Oh,
me.
speaking of
Yeah.
lists, so here on the Wikipedia page, I'm reading straight off Wikipedia, but it says tennis was included as one of the titles in the 2010 book 1001 Video Games You Must Play Before You Die. IGN ranked the game 84th on their top 100 SNES games of all time. And in 1995, Total rated the game 40th on their top 100 SNES games list. So it's made a lot of top Super Nintendo games lists, which is pretty impressive because that's a system where you can't argue that the library is stacked. There are a lot of good Super Nintendo games.
Come
I
on.
am not that into tennis. I ranked it towards the middle of my list at number 87, which puts it below Kid Icarus on the NES, speaking of him, and right above Rival Turf on Super Nintendo.
Come on, 1,001 games you have to play before you die. Let's be right
Well,
there.
I don't know if you're familiar, but that's a series they've done for a lot of things. There's 1,001 albums to listen to before you die. There's 1,001 movies to see before you die. And
Okay.
it's not necessarily saying they're the best. It's saying that they offer something interesting to look at. You know what I'm saying? For example, on the 1001 albums to listen to before you die, Ch Limp Bizkit's Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water is on that list, and I don't think it's because they think it's a good album. I think it's because they think it is an interesting snapshot of when that album came out.
No, I get that. I get that it's influence and it's
Yeah.
culture, and it's like they're not saying you have to do it before you die or you miss out on it. Just like it's I don't like the title. People got
Yeah.
jobs. People got jobs like there is not a there's not 1,000 of anything you have to do before you die. They're just yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
To be
Anyway, so
1,001 games, you need to read a short, article about before you die. You need to read a short blurb in a book about before you die.
this is 71 for me. If you have the expansion pass in Mario Tennis, there's nothing Mario Tennis does worse than this game. So it's pretty much either I'm breaking it down to either you've played this game in the past and you're nostalgic for it, or you want to play a sports game in this graphic style, in this generation. Beyond that, play Mario Tennis because, like, there's nothing like the characters are nothing important. Oh, I forgot to mention that, there's a Yoshi in Super Soccer, so there might be other, like, Nintendo
A player
names.
named Yoshi
Th
that
th yeah,
does, yeah.
there's a forward, a soccer player
Mhm.
named Yoshi, so I don't know if there's any other ones, that's the only one that I saw.
Be interesting if there was just a Yoshi in Super Soccer. Among the human players, there's a Yoshi.
Yeah, that would have been better, right? So which is like, we're joking, but it kinda brings back my point of, like, Super Tennis, like, there's no, like there's it's all just kinda generic, there's, like, generic
Mhm.
characters. Play Mario Tennis, it's a better game, and it's cuter, it looks better.
Wario,
Yeah,
Waluigi, come on.
and
Daisy, these are characters you don't get outside those games.
and play it before the series goes bad. Mario Tennis is number 9 on my list, so, it's still a top 10 of the games that we've played. This one, that's pretty much it. I wouldn't recommend it unless it was that, nostalgia or graphic style.
Mario Tennis is 27 on my list, top 30. Still so that is oh, we gotta figure out what we're playing next week. Sorry. Let me, spin the old randomizer here. Alright, single title. No more multiple titles, at least this week. So, we are going with the original pack-in game for the Sega Genesis. I think this is it. Altered Beast for Sega Genesis. I'm fairly confident was the original pack-in before they switched it to Sonic. So, some Altered Beast, fan favorite. We'll see how it fares. Finally getting some Sega Genesis love after a while.
We haven't played this
And
one?
finally do what's that?
We haven't played Altered Beast?
Let me do a quick control F. ALT. Nope.
No.
0 of 0. We have not played Altered Beast.
We've played something like it
We've
then.
probably talked about it in comparison to something.
We've played a game similar to that. Okay, that's fine. We talked about it when it came on the service, perhaps. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
but anyways, okay, cool. Not a game that I've played. Is it one that you? Because when I got Genesis, my pack-in was Lion King. So yeah.
Oh, no, I got the Genesis with the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and yeah, this was a forgotten game by the time I had a Genesis. No, this was not one that circulated in my neighborhood. So this unfortunately will be a nostalgia-free review. It will be very much looking back with no fond memories. So, not saying I'm gonna dump on it or anything, but I I don't have any childhood memories of this game, so it's going to be a pure review, a first time impression, if you will. All right, so thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching the channel. If you're on YouTube, like everyone says, be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think of Altered Beast so we can talk about it next week, if anybody comments about that. In the meantime, you can check us out on Blue Sky. You can check us out pretty much everywhere, and if we're not there, let us know. We'll get there. Just keep in mind we're Nintendo fans, not Nintendo experts. We probably got a lot of stuff wrong, but one thing we did not get wrong, despite what TikTok wants you to believe, is that Super Soccer will be leaving the service at the end of March. Sorry to say. You could bookmark this if you want to. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.